President Donald Trump's decision to slap hefty tariffs on Indian imports, escalating tensions between the US and India. On August 6, 2025, President Donald Trump signed an executive order increasing tariffs on Indian imports from 25% to a steep 50%. These tariffs, set to take effect on August 27, 2025, target a wide range of Indian goods entering the US. This move is a direct response to India's continued purchase of Russian oil, which the US sees as undermining its efforts to isolate Russia economically due to the Ukraine conflict. India, on the other hand, has called these tariffs selective and unfair, arguing they're unjustified given its need for affordable energy.
This has created a serious rift between two major trading partners, with both sides digging in. To understand why this matters, we need to look at the bigger picture of US-India trade and the role of Russian oil. The US and India have a massive trade relationship, with bilateral trade hitting around $190 billion in 2024. The US is India's largest export market, buying everything from pharmaceuticals and textiles to agricultural products. Earlier this year, in February 2025, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the White House to strengthen ties, aiming to double trade to $500 billion by 2030. India made concessions like lowering tariffs on US motorcycles and whiskey and promised more market access for American farm goods. But tensions were already simmering. The US has long complained about its trade deficit with India, which was $45.8 billion in 2024, and Trump has pushed for what he calls reciprocal trade. The new tariffs, however, aren't just about trade imbalances. They're tied to geopolitics, specifically India's energy deals with Russia. So why is the US targeting India? It's all about Russian oil. Since the Ukraine conflict began, the US and its allies have imposed sanctions to cut Russia's economic lifeline, particularly its oil exports. India, however, has become one of the largest buyers of Russian oil, importing millions of barrels at discounted rates. Trump has publicly accused India of buying mass amounts of Russian oil and reselling it for profit, which he claims disregards the Ukraine situation. The US sees this as indirectly funding Russia's war efforts, and the 50% tariffs are a way to pressure India to stop. The White House has also said it's monitoring other countries buying Russian oil, hinting that more tariffs could follow. This isn't just about economics. It's a strategic move to shape global energy markets and geopolitics. India isn't taking this lying down. The Indian government has called the tariffs unfair, unjustified, and unreasonable, emphasizing that its energy decisions are driven by the needs of its 1.4 billion people. India argues that it relies on affordable oil to keep prices stable and fuel economic growth. Official statements have pointed out what they see as hypocrisy. Western countries, including some in the EU, continue to trade with Russia, yet India faces the brunt of US criticism. India also notes that the US previously encouraged it to buy Russian oil to stabilize global energy markets after the Ukraine conflict disrupted supplies. The government has vowed to protect its interests, and while Prime Minister Modi hasn't commented directly on the August tariffs, India is reportedly considering retaliatory measures or diplomatic negotiations to resolve the issue. Let's talk in numbers. For India, these tariffs could hit hard. The US is a key market, and a 50% tariff could make Indian goods like pharmaceuticals, textiles, and machinery less competitive, potentially affecting $66 billion in exports. Early estimates suggest India's GDP growth could take a hit and the Indian rupee has already weakened in response to tariff threats. For the US, higher tariffs mean American consumers and businesses could face increased prices for Indian imports, from medicines to clothing. This could add to inflation pressures, especially in sectors reliant on Indian supply chains. Both economies stand to lose, but the extent depends on how long the tariffs last and whether a deal is reached before August 27, 2025. India's response, like counter-tariffs or shifting trade to other markets, could further complicate things. Beyond economics, this is a geopolitical showdown. The US sees India as a critical partner in countering China, especially in Asia, but India's close ties with Russia, through defense deals and energy imports, are a sticking point. India's policy of strategic autonomy means it avoids aligning too closely with any one power, balancing relations with the US, Russia, and others. Modi's visits to Russia in 2024, even as Western sanctions tightened, highlight this approach. The tariffs could strain US-India relations, potentially weakening cooperation on issues like defense or technology. At the same time, India's firm stance may boost its influence in groups like BRICS, where it advocates for developing nations. The US risks pushing India closer to Russia or other partners if tensions escalate. Now let's look ahead first.
If no deal is reached by August 27, 2025, India might retaliate with tariffs on US goods, like agricultural products or tech equipment, which could spark a broader trade war. This would hurt both economies and disrupt global supply chains. Second, India could double down on its Russian oil purchases, leveraging long-term contracts to secure energy and possibly deepen ties with Russia or China, shifting global alliances. Third, diplomatic talks could lead to a compromise. Perhaps India agrees to reduce Russian oil imports gradually in exchange for tariff relief. However, Trump's threat to target other countries buying Russian oil suggests this issue could expand, affecting nations like China or Turkey and reshaping global trade. Finally, domestic pressure in India could push Modi's government to take a hardline stance, especially with upcoming elections. So, there you have it. This situation is a complex mix of trade, energy, and global politics, with no easy resolution in sight. What do you think? Will the US and India find a way to de-escalate? Or are we headed for a bigger trade conflict? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with friends, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.